the general term of testing. I want some meanings of this testing. Meanings. And you people need to excuse me when I'm typing on the screen over here, because my spellings are very bad. You need to adjust this. Fine. Testing meaning, what all the synonyms you get on the synonyms of testing. Right. What does it you will do? You can do some checking process. You can do some review process, verification, validation you can do. You can do some executions, right? There are plenty of words you can keep on getting it like this, right? In that case, we just started with much more basic word called checking. Checking, whatever, however you call it as, right? What is it we will check for? So we'll be checking whether the product is working properly or not, right? In generally, like we go to a retailer's, any retailer, we buy a product. When we buy a product, is the product working properly or not? The general thing is like you go to a retail store like to buy a pen, and what do you do standing in front of him over there when you buy a pen? You just scribble it on the pad, scribble pad, and see whether it is working properly or that's it, right? Simple as that. So you are trying to check whether that particular product is working or not. So that is why I'm using my general words for that. Checking, right? Reviewing, a cross verification kind of a word you can say it as, right? Verifying, validation, execution. So using these words, I can form a sentence of this, right? So I'm going with this word called execution. Then execution, in a sense, how do we put a definition for this, right? It is a process of executing an application with an intent to find defects. So as a test engineer, what will be your intention behind the product when the product is being given it to you? Your intention is to find some defects, right? So this is one type of sentence we can form, right? Or otherwise, we can put this sentence in another way also. It is a process of, I'll put it like this. It's a process of identifying the defects, document them, and subject it to rectification. So you test engineers, what is it you will do? You will be identifying the defects, right? So we were talking about an example called as a pen. So when a pen has been given, I'm trying to scribble it on the pad, seeing whether it is writing or not. If it is not writing, that means I identified a defect in that particular product called pen. Then what do? I'll put it into a document, right? The kind of documents we call it, we'll discuss about these documents and all as we go in the further. Like we'll be preparing something called bug report, right? Otherwise, defect report document. Something like this, documents we'll be preparing, because these are the documents which are going to be clearly mentioned in there that so-and-so product is having particular defect which is affecting to that severely or not so severely, whatever it is, we'll be putting in this particular document. Right? And what do we do with that document? Subjected to rectification. So what does mean by rectification over here? Correction, right? Correction. Otherwise, you're doing some corrections, right? Making it work again process, some words like that you can do. That means identifying the defects and documenting them is being done by whom? So this identifying and the documenting them, these two works are being done by you test engineers, whereas rectification part or correction part is all done by your developers, right? So developer only has that responsibility or the right to do the rectification or the correction because he has all the coding structure with him. The entire source code of that particular product, if it is called as a software application, then we'll talk about the source code of it. So he has all that source code related to that product with him, so he will be doing that correction part, right? So this is how I can get this meaning testing, where I'm using different words like this: checking, reviewing, verification, validation, execution. So from that I used one of the word called execution and put a sentence like this: a process of executing an application with an intent to find some defects. Otherwise, you can evenly use these lines also. It is a process of identifying the defect, documenting them, and subjected to rectification. So this is the definition part. Like we're just trying to get into the meaning of this word called testing, right? So there are some questions keep on raising onto you. Like you people might be keep on getting some doubts like this: testing done by whom? One question every time, like, and how many ways to do testing is another question. And the last one is important. Testing is important. These are the questions you people keep on getting into your mindset over there, right? We'll discuss about them, each one individually, right? Who all will do the testing? And the regular term what you say is obviously we test engineers. Test engineers are going to do the testing, you people say. So when we say obviously we are as a test engineers, we are going to do testing. So we play a vital role over here as a test engineer for the software organization or that particular product testing, right? So when we are playing a vital role, what are things you'll be testing in that software application? Either it can be a software application or a hardware application. It doesn't mind that you are always doing a software application testing, but when you go into an IT sector, that is software, so you'll be called as a software test engineer. So every products are being tested, right? As I took an example of a pen, you can take a hold of your keyboard, mouse, your mobiles, or whatever it is, a key, vehicle key, a remote, everything are being tested now, right? It is nothing that it is not being tested. It is only software to be tested. No hardwares are tested, nothing like that. Everything's are being tested, right? So that is why we call test engineer. But when I'm putting it into a software side, I'm calling them as software test engineer. So we are going to play a vital role over there, right? So when you're supposed to do a testing on a product, so what all things you'll be testing over there, right? So I'll put few lines like this, right? So what do we do, test engineer? Verify functionality of application. At that time will be called as a functional tester will be called, right? Now in this line we'll try to get the term called as functional or functionality, right? Now what is the meaning of this functionality, right? Working condition, right? Working condition, whatever it is, you can put it like that, right? So functionality of an application, how well the application is working, and it is supposed to be worked based on user requirements there, right? Functionality working based on user requirement, right? So we took an example of a pen. We'll talk about that example itself, right? When you go to a retailer's, your requirement is to get a black ink pen. So you went to the retailers, you asked for I need a black ink pen. Now when he gives you, you start scribbling it. And when you scribble it, it started writing it in blue. Now what do you call it? Is it functioning or is it not functioning? What do you people say? You want me to repeat the question? So I said functionality, working condition, and based on user requirements we are talking about, right? So your requirement is to buy a black ink pen. When the retailer gave you a pen, when you scribbled it, it started writing it in blue. So my question is the product working or not? I say working, but with a defect it is working. Is it clear? Right. So you asked for a black ink, he gave you a blue ink pen, but it is functioning with a defect. So that is what we are trying to do, identifying the defects. So we identified that it is having some defect in the product. Yes, Indraman. It is working, but not as per the user requirements. Because your requirement was to get a black ink, but you started getting a blue ink pen, right? So working condition, it is always based on user requirement. Fine. I'll come down to another example, something like this. A small calculator kind of an example, I will take it, right? So as a client, my requirement is a calculator to do some addition process over there. So 1 plus 1 equals 2. So client requirement is 3. He wants the calculator to display whenever we press 1 and 1 equal to 3. So it gets developed. When it gets developed, it has been given to you test engineers. So you test engineers are testing it, right? Testing it, but when you got 2, right? So when you got 2, is the product working or not? Is the product working or not? A calculator client requirement is to display 1 plus 1 equal to 3. It gets developed. After the development, when you test engineers are testing it, you got the result as 2. Yes, it is working, but the result, the output is wrong because the client wanted is 3. So we get to know, like we from childhood, our brains have been brainwashed from our lecturers that every time whenever you see 1 and 1, it is supposed to be 2. I'm not saying that is wrong or either way our lectures are wrong, right? A general conversation, client, we cannot assume that client always comes with a requirement 1 plus 1 equal to 2, but he wants it as 1 plus 1 equal to 3. So we can't help it out. As per the requirement, we have to work on 2, so it gets developed. But when we test it, we declare it as a defect, but it is working with the wrong output over there, right? But like when we identified it, we delivered back to the developers, it gets rectified, right? And when we do the testing again, now we got the result as 3. Fine. The product is working, the calculator is working now. But as a test engineer, are you satisfied with this level of testing, or you will still go further anything else more? The requirement was 1 plus 1 equal to 3. So you got the result as 3. So you're done with that, you stop testing, or you will do something else more on this? me as a test engineer, I will still do some more testing onto this product because this is what he wanted. But still, I will try to see some more things like I will do multiple methods of testing. Is 3 getting displayed in the other numbers or not? Right? 2 plus 2, otherwise 3 plus 3, I'm trying to check out for, and so on like that. If my 3 gets displayed somewhere here and as well as here, then my product is having a defect, right? Now, when you raise a defect, earlier you got a defect over here, you said like the product is working with a wrong output, right? You identified in that manner, but it got rectified. 1 plus 1 equal to 3 has come back. But when you evenly tested for the other methods, like 2 and 3, like 2 plus 2 and 3 plus 3, you're still getting 3 over there, where it is not supposed to get displayed, right? So you call it as a defect. But my question over here is it working or not? Is this product now working or not? I say, yes, it is working. But when we get defect, the defect is with the invalid requirements over there. This is what we call it as valid requirements, and these two are called as invalid requirements, right? So client requirements, I'll call it as something like valid requirements, and the rest of the part here, these two are called as my invalid requirement, right? My calculator is working, all requirements are satisfied, but it is evenly working with the invalid requirements. So this clear explanation, I'll be putting it in my bug report so that my developer will understand about this and try to do the rectification process. So this is what we are talking about, all the term called as functionality, right? So we are test engineers verifying some functionality of that application where we are called as a functional testers, we can say. So a general example we have taken, right? We'll come down to the software side, like we'll try to open some web pages, right? So I'll open a page called as Google, right? This is the home page. So I want some answers onto this. What is the working condition or what is the functionality of this Google search engine? What is the functionality of this Google search page? What kind of page is this? What is the functionality of this text box? Or at least not the entire page, fine. You always open a Google, go to the text box and start typing something or the other, right? So anyways, like where we started with the testing meaning, I'll come down to it. Testing meaning, right? This is what we generally do, testing meaning. So in that case, we had a discussion till now, functionality, right? I gave you some example called as calculator. Now I want, what is the functionality of this Google search pages? The regular usage, morning to evening, people keep on opening it, searching something or the other, and closing it. So, no idea about this. So when you're trying to search some text or something or the other onto this page, it is used to search what we require, right? So you said like search what we require. So our requirement was to get something like this testing, meaning we wanted to search, right? So it is giving us some suggestions at the bottom, right? Because there is a word called testing in the Google's dictionary, so it is giving us some information related to it. Say like this, the word called testing is not there in the Google's dictionary, Google's database, right? Then how does it start functioning, right? When we are typing it, there is a word onto this, the Google's database, so it is giving us the suggestions, right? If the word is not there in the Google's database, now I can't get the word which is not there in the Google's database. Generally, we are talking, consider there is no word called testing. Then what will be the working condition of this Google page then? Does it give you the information still regarding testing, or it says no such word found? Yeah, not able to understand. Have you ever seen this sentence, no such word found anytime in Google? I can never seen that kind of a sentence like that from Google anytime. When you type a word which is not there in the Google's database, it will still give you some suggestions. It says, did you mean this? It will never say no word found. Right? Did you mean this? Ever did you observe any time? Otherwise, observe it next time when you do the searching. Right? So I'm trying to type a word like testing, which is there in the Google database. It will try to get it, right? If it is not there, still we go for search. It will say, did you mean this, right? So that is how the functionality we are talking about. Now, how about this Google's database functionality when I'm using a blank text box? When I use a blank text box and press enter, right? What is the functionality of this page should be? The functionality of this page should not do any reaction, any action onto it. It should be intact in that manner, right? As the same it is. It is no. I'm pressing it over here, like I'm continuously pressing enter. There's nothing happening over here. It is not supposed to happen because blank are not to be accepted. It will only accept the enter until unless you press a keyword. Either it can be a single letter one or a multiple letters keywords over there, right? That is how the functionality is. When I keep it blank and press the enter, it shows you the previous search database. Then I will say the functionality is having a defect where it is not supposed to function with a blank text box, but it is still functioning. So it is called as a defect. So that is what we are discussing all about, the term called as functionality. Right? Did you get this functionality meaning? Right? So as a test engineer, we are trying to work on to the functionality. Now, apart from functionality, what else we will try to search for? Right? We'll put it like this: test engineer checks performance of application as a performance tester, we will say. Right? So functionality we said, working condition. Now what is the performance here? How do you mean it as performance? Right? Otherwise, you can put it as response, duration, durability, right? Like these words you can use for this performance. Efficiency you can use, right? What is the response of this Google search page, right? When you're trying to search some results, obviously you people have checked your graduation results or any education results through Google itself, if at all I'm not wrong. Right? You try to search from the Google so and so results, 2019 or 20, whatever year you're trying to search for, right? How is that results web page response it is during that particular day? During the particular day, results web page will be slow. Why? The number of users accessing onto that page is slow, right? I use another word called duration, durability, which I put it as. You try to open some multimedia web pages, a 3D web pages or a multimedia or gaming web pages, right? You'll find this page like Google search page opening up faster for you, right? In a similar manner, you're trying to open some gaming web pages. It will take some time to open, even though you're having a high-speed internet, right? Because the response of the page, it has to load all those images and all, right? For that purpose, the gaming web page is taking time. The response of that page is slow because of the content opening takes time. Whereas Google has a lot of page emptier, so it will take less time to open the page, right? How well the application is responding, and the response is always based on number of users accessing the pages, right? This is one thing you will do, right? And the other thing is, so we test engineers, as a test engineer, we create test cases, right? This is where you do manual test cases, right? And convert them into scripts as a automation test, right? So need not worry about this cases, because anyways, when we get into the internal more into the subject, we'll be writing some test cases related to some applications over there. At that time I will explain it to you, right? So these cases are always written in manual, whereas automation is always related to the scripts. You write JavaScripts over there, right? So that means we test engineers, we play different roles onto the application. Functionality testing, performance testing, manual test engineer, and automation test engineer we will play. When we do manual testing, we do talk about cases, lot of documentation we write over there. When we are talking about automation, automation like Selenium, where we talk about scripts like JavaScripts we are going to write. So this is what one of the person testing done by whom? One of the person is testing, right? So we got the clarity about the vital role, what are the roles we are going to play. Now, apart from test engineer, is there anybody else going to do this testing? Can I put developers also as a testing person for the application in that case? So you people are aware of programming languages, right? So you've been into programming like the basic C language. I'm not going to go into the Java side, right? C language, you people write a program, the basic line of program, the very first day what we learn or what they taught us, right? You said printf, sorry, printf, hello world, right? And what do you do with this particular line? You have written a statement, right? A statement. What is it you'll do in C language? In C language, you do compilation, right? Whereas in Java, you do called as debug or debugging, you call it as. Now try to get these meanings again. Compile or debug are nothing but testing itself. So now over here, what is it you are testing? Over here, you are trying to do a lot of testings. But as a developer, I am trying to do testing on my programs, right? So you, in the C language, I don't remember properly, either you press a Control F9 or an Alt F9 over there. Hope you people remember those days, right? It will immediately show you with a different color indication that this particular line has some syntax error. Now, is my line having any syntax errors over here? Yeah, thank you, ma'am. But my C language printf statement having any? Yes, the basic programming, the basic part, every statement needs to be ended with a semicolon, and conditions do not end up with any semicolon. Do remember that, the basic thing, as you are into Java lecturer over there, so I don't need to teach you all that, right? So that is what it is. Not only C language, any programming language, statement needs to be ended with a semicolon, whereas conditions are not to be ended with any condition, sorry, any semicolons over there. So as a developer, what am I doing? Whatever the lines of programs I am writing it, I am testing it either in C language, I'm calling it as compiling, either with Java, I'm doing some debugging. But the technical term I'm using for the developers is we do something called as unit testing over there. So developer performs a unit testing on the software to ensure the individual methods are working properly. You write programs individually, right? You're not going to write program for the entire page of this current called as Google. You'll be writing it in a part by part. That means you're going to divide the page into parts. Each part, a set of programs will be written, and those set of programs will be executed individually. If it is executing properly, you'll come down to another part, write it again, then do the execution. That is how you call it as unit testing over there. So we got to know one person. This is test engineer as one person, and the other person for us is developer. Now, is there any other person who does any testing for us? Third person, I'll call it as end users, I'll call them as, right? End users perform UAT, we call it as, which is called as user acceptance testing, right? And this user acceptance testing is always conducted at client location, or otherwise you can call it as live environment, right? Now, once the product is developed, tested successfully, and when it is being delivered where the client at the client location, and the product is tested once again at that location, which we are calling it as user acceptance testing, right? So we'll take another example for this kind of UAT, user acceptance testing, right? So it is summer, so obviously we go buy some refrigerators or a coolers or an air conditions, right? You buy it over there from the retail stores, it gets delivered to your place. Once it is delivered, You as a client, what do you do with that air conditioner or a cooler or a refrigerator when you buy it? Once it is delivered to you, your home, what is the first thing you will do? Will you test that product once the air condition is delivered? The delivery boy comes with a vehicle, puts the AC, delivers to your place, goes out. So you as a client, will you test that particular product? Yes or no? Whatever it is, air condition, television, refrigerator, you people bought all this. Like you have the basic things which we have it in our houses. Will you test that? Yes or no? Did any time you said yes, ma'am, over there? Do you remember clearly? Once the product is delivered to your place, I say no. Because as a client, I never ever did any testing once the product is delivered to my place. Because a technical person comes down to your location and does the installation or assembling part, connects it, switches on, checks everything, then leaves the product at our place and goes. Right? The technical person coming down to your place, he is called as nothing but end user or users. Right? Testing at your location, we calling it as user acceptance testing, we say. Right? So as a clients, we never ever do any testing. Now, once he left after that, you do your personal testing. That as an organization person, I'm least bothered about that. But my responsibility, once the product is delivered, I will make sure the product is working at the client location, then I'm leaving. See, you people remember like this. Once the product is delivered, right, the client comes down, assembles it, fixes it, he switches on, madam, is it okay? Air condition, I'm going to talk right now, right? The AC is working fine, it is getting cool, are you satisfied? Yes, everything. He fills up one job card and tells you to sign it. You sign it. Now, why do you sign that particular job card? You as a user accepting the product which I selected delivered successful. You as a user accepting the product installed properly. You user accepted the product is working properly. So what did you do? You just signed it and left that technical person which you're talking about user acceptance testing over here, right? So there is not only test engineer to do the testing. There are different people to do testing in their respective areas, right? We do the external part testing as a test engineers, developers internal structures, whereas at the client location, we do another level